abandoned hospital's lights flicker, and the screams never stop. That chilling thought had haunted my mind ever since I first heard about the place. It was a decrepit structure hidden deep within the woods, far from civilization, and a place where no one dared to venture. Yet, here I was, standing before it, compelled by a morbid curiosity that gnawed at my very soul. The sun had dipped below the horizon, and the forest was swallowed by an inky darkness. I clutched my flashlight, my only source of solace in this forsaken place. My footsteps echoed ominously through the overgrown courtyard as I pushed open the rusty, creaking doors. The moment I entered, a shiver ran down my spine, and my heart began to race. The hospital's interior was a nightmarish scene. Faded wallpaper peeled from the walls, revealing the damp and decaying structure beneath. A pervasive sense of despair hung in the air, as if the very walls were soaked in the agony of the souls that had suffered within these walls. I cautiously advanced down the dimly lit corridor, my flashlight casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional drip of water from a leaky ceiling. And then, just as the legend foretold, the flickering lights began their eerie dance. A cold sweat formed on my brow, and I knew I should have turned back, but I couldn't. I had to uncover the truth behind the screams that echoed in my nightmares. As I delved deeper into the hospital's twisted labyrinth, the screams grew louder, more agonizing. It was as if tortured souls whispered their torment into my ears, their suffering clawing at the edges of my sanity. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that malevolent eyes followed my every move. The hospital's layout was a maze, and I soon found myself lost in its nightmarish corridors. Panic began to take hold of me, and I quickened my pace. My flashlight's beam flickered and faltered, casting me into darkness for agonizing seconds at a time. I cursed the unreliable device, but it was my only lifeline in this hellish place. That's when I heard it. A sound that sent a bolt of terror through my veins. It was not just a scream. It was a gut-wrenching, soul-rending wail that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once. It was as if the very walls themselves were crying out in pain. And I knew then that I was not alone in the abandoned hospital. Something, or someone, was here with me. And whatever it was, it hungered for the fear that now consumed me. In the suffocating darkness, I had a terrible realization. The legends were true, and I had walked right into the heart of the hospital's unspeakable horrors. The screams never stopped, and I feared they never would, for I had unwittingly become a part of the nightmare that had haunted this place for so long. The haunting wail continued to reverberate through the hospital's crumbling corridors, a chorus of anguish that seemed to grow in intensity with each passing moment. I clutched my flashlight, my trembling hands threatening to betray me in my desperate bid for survival. With every step, the shadows twisted and danced, their movements taunting me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being herded, guided deeper into the heart of this malevolent labyrinth. It was as if an unseen force was drawing me inexorably towards the source of those agonizing screams. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat a relentless reminder of the impending doom that surrounded me. The hospital's architecture became increasingly surreal. The walls adorned with cryptic symbols and faded, disturbing paintings of grotesque figures. It was as though the building itself was alive, a sentient entity that reveled in the suffering of those who dared to trespass. My flashlight's feeble glow barely illuminated the path ahead, casting eerie, elongated shadows that seemed to take on sinister forms of their own. And then, just as I rounded a corner, the light faltered, flickering erratically before plunging me into darkness once more. Panic seized me, and I fumbled to revive the failing flashlight. The screams intensified, now a cacophony of tormented voices that echoed in my mind, threatening to drive me to the brink of madness. My breath came in ragged gasps, and I could feel the weight of unseen eyes upon me. In the midst of this chaos, I stumbled upon a door, half ajar, beckoning me with an eerie, pulsating light that seemed to defy the laws of nature. With trepidation, I pushed it open, revealing a room bathed in an otherworldly glow. It was a surgical theatre, frozen in time, with rusty instruments and blood-stained tables. In the center of the room lay a figure, shrouded in tattered, blood-soaked rags. Its back was turned to me, but I could sense it was aware of my presence. The unearthly cries that had plagued me for so long now emanated from this grotesque apparition. Fear clamped down on my chest, and I wanted to flee, to escape this living nightmare, but something compelled me to approach. The figure slowly turned to face me, and what I saw sent a wave of terror crashing over me. Its eyes were empty voids, devoid of life or humanity. Its skin was pallid, stretched tight over skeletal features, and its fingers ended in wickedly sharp talons. As it extended a bony hand toward me, the unearthly cries reached a deafening crescendo. I had ventured too far into the abyss, and now there was no turning back. The abandoned hospital held its secrets tightly, and I was to become one of its tormented, never-ending symphony of screams. The grotesque figure reached for me, its talons gleaming in the eerie light of the surgical theatre. My heart raced, and I stumbled backward, my flashlight falling from my trembling hand and shattering on the cold, unforgiving floor. As the room plunged into darkness, the screams grew even more piercing, their torment echoing in my mind. I was trapped in this nightmarish theatre, alone with the malevolent entity that had haunted this forsaken place for so long. Panic surged through me, and I felt an overwhelming sense of hopelessness. In the blackness, I could sense the figure moving closer, its raspy breath and the sound of its clawed fingers scraping against the floor sending chills down my spine. I had become prey in this macabre theatre of suffering, and the audience was an unseen legion of tortured souls. Desperation overtook reason, and I fumbled in the dark, searching for any means of escape. My hands came into contact with something cold and metallic. A scalpel. It was a feeble weapon, but it was all I had. Clutching it tightly, I turned and lashed out in the direction of the approaching horror. There was a guttural, inhuman scream, and I felt the blade make contact. A searing pain shot through me as the entity recoiled, but it did not retreat. Instead, it lunged forward with renewed ferocity. My mind raced as I swung the scalpel blindly, striking the figure again and again. The screams reached a deafening pitch, and for a moment, I thought I glimpsed a flicker of humanity in those abyssal eyes. But it was too late. The figure's relentless assault pushed me to the brink of madness, and I knew that the only way to escape this unending nightmare was to become a part of it. In a final, desperate act, I drove the scalpel into my own chest, the pain searing through me. The screams, now a symphony of agony, engulfed me, drowning out all other sensation. As darkness closed in, I could feel the malevolent presence merging with my own, our tormented souls entwined in a ceaseless cycle of suffering. The abandoned hospital's lights continued to flicker, and the screams never stopped. They echoed through the decaying corridors, a chilling reminder of the horrors that lay hidden within. And as the legend persisted, I became just another tortured soul, trapped in the eternal nightmare of the forsaken place, forever haunted by the unending screams.